now we come to the last major battle in the American War for Independence. It's another name for this war. We're going to start with a video that reviews what's been so far.
By 1778, the war had proved unwinnable for Britain in the North. The number of patriots vastly outnumbered loyalists, and the Continental Army was equal to anything Britain could place on the field. Believing they would find more loyalists among the aristocratic southern plantation owners, British leaders shifted the war south to Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Washington's home state of Virginia. At first, the southern campaign went badly for the Americans. In 1778, the British had captured Savannah. Charleston fell in 1780. Soon after, British forces under General Cornwallis worked their way through North Carolina and into Virginia. But a series of lightning victories for the Americans turned the tide of war. At Kings Mountain in North Carolina, a Tar Heel militia destroyed a British force. At this place, known as Cowpens, Daniel Morgan's troops decimated a British army of 1,000, killing and wounding 900 of them. General Cornwallis called this defeat a very unexpected and severe blow. Then at Guilford Courthouse, Cornwallis's army was mauled severely by colonial troops. He was forced to retreat toward the Virginia coast, where in an unexpected twist of fate, Britain and the new United States would settle the Revolutionary War not far from the site of Britain's first colony, founded 174 years earlier.
So that is Jamestown, and what I like about this video is that it points out the irony of the fact that the Battle of Yorktown that ends America's rebellion against England and America's really true start as its own nation happens very close to where in 1607 Jamestown was started. If you ever go visit Jamestown, stop off at the Yorktown battlefield. They're very, very close. With that in mind now, we know that this is going to give the Americans a chance to cooperate with the French. And so Washington, with our army, is going to march about 200 miles in 15 days from New York City to this place called Yorktown. So that's what you want in this blank, Yorktown. Now, as Washington was marching, he had to hope that the French Navy was going to keep its part of the bargain. And the French Navy's part of the bargain was that it was going to come and make sure the British did not take over Chesapeake Bay. You have a map that I don't have on this video. Let me see if I can get it to come up. Woohoo, I can. Okay, you have a map that looks like this. This map is showing you the fact that Yorktown is on a peninsula. We have Britain. Britain is right here, surrounded by France, the soldiers from France, and the United States, the nations of America. In the meantime, we had ships from France here arranged in a crescent shape across Chesapeake Bay, and they just barely got there before the British Navy came, and there was a big naval battle. And so, let me get all this back here now. So that battle happened right here at the entrance to the Chesapeake Bay. It was called the Battle of the Capes. The French got there first, the crescent formation. And so if you want to write the word crescent, that's fine. You want to draw to show yourself that. And if you want to even highlight that in your picture, the map, that would be a good idea. So it's this idea of a crescent formation that allowed who? France or England to win? France won this. What was that like? Well, first of all, we have Cornwallis in charge for the British yet. He's at Yorktown. He is encircled by George Washington and Rochambeau, the French forces. In the meantime, Count de Grasse, the French officer in the Navy, took on the English Navy, and you can see this English boat is surrendering. In the foreground, you have another English boat. So this picture is from the point of view of the French looking at the English surrendering as a result of this battle. This is Rochambeau. And this is another prettier map of what happened around Yorktown. Because the French formation because the crescent formation let the French win this battle, they knew that the British would not be able to bring reinforcements up the river. That meant that the French Navy could send boats up the river, warships, to help keep Cornwallis bottled up. So most of this battle happened around Yorktown. It was a siege. What does a siege mean? Well, you see up here, it happened through September and October of 1781. That means this was not just a one-day battle. That means the French and the Continentals dug trenches far out from where the British were in the town and had their cannons. We first started our trenches far enough out that the British couldn't reach us, and then we gradually moved those trenches in. Now, the British had their own trenches, so once ours were close enough to encircle Yorktown and make sure that they were choked off from any chance of supplies, we set up our cannons to fire at the town. We needed Yorktown to surrender, but we were getting ready to attack. The last thing that we had to do is we had to rush the outer defenses, the ditches that the British had dug. It was rather dangerous. When we were successful there, the British tried to cross a river to get away in this direction, but then a storm came. And so on October 18th, 1781, the British surrendered the town of Yorktown. So this is not an accurate picture of Yorktown because there was no castle or fort high up on a hill. This picture is meant to focus on the cooperation between George Washington and the French army as well. This is the rushing of those trenches of the British. Again, there's a little bit of leeway taken here because it happened more at night. That way the British couldn't see us coming and couldn't aim quite as well. But other than that, you can see these sharpened sticks. Those are called abattis, pointed outward at the people that would be attacking. And they worked pretty well. And if you go visit the battlefield of Yorktown, yeah, I've been there. It is quite daunting to stand and look at these abattis and go, I wouldn't want to climb up that ditch and then have to climb over those while someone is standing on top trying to kill me. This is the idea of the surrender at Yorktown. Again, this is an artist taking liberties. It's not exactly how it happened. A more accurate picture of the surrender at Yorktown is this. So you can see the town of Yorktown is way far away. The British marched out to a place called Surrender Field, and it's really an interesting spot to go visit. You can see it was a long line. They laid down their flags and their weapons, and then they marched off under a flag of surrender. As they came marching out, their band was playing the song "The World Turned Upside Down." Why is that significant? Well, you'll hear in this video.
In the heat, The works will soon be in a tolerable state of defense. The army is in good health. We have 6 weeks' provisions.
Now you have to stop and think, is this video talking about the end of the Battle of Yorktown or the beginning? Well, hey, the army is in a tolerable state of defense. We have 6 weeks of provisions. He's a British officer. This is the beginning of the siege. So the British didn't worry at first.
The French and Americans prepare for a siege. They dig trenches encircling the town. Rochambeau, an expert at siege warfare, guides the activities. The British soldiers watch with increasing alarm.
I try to warn the Earl of the weakness of our defences. I show him how I can jump over the earthworks. It will disgrace our army to fall in a siege. If that happens, he answers coldly. The blame will be on Clinton, not on us.
The reason Cornwallis said everyone would blame Clinton if they lost at Yorktown. Clinton is the overall commander in North America for the British, and he stayed in New York City. When Cornwallis asked for reinforcements, Clinton did not send them on time, and the reinforcements then that came late in the boats couldn't get through when the French won that battle at the Chesapeake Bay.
The bombardment of Yorktown now begins in earnest. The French cannon pound the British defenses day and night. When the British are weak enough, the Allies advance their lines, bringing the cannon ever closer.
The siege began. It lasted week after week. And as it lasted, Cornwallis's provisions began to grow very short. In order to prevent his horses from starving to death, they had to be slaughtered and thrown into the river.
And he did with the African Americans something very similar to what he did with the horses. His men were starving, and they wanted every ounce of food.
The Americans and French position themselves to advance on the British outer defenses.
The password for tonight is the name of the French commander, Rochambeau. Easy to remember, Rochambeau. That sounds just like Rush On, boys. The signal is given. We silently move on the redoubts. Bayonets fixed. The enemy sees us and begins firing. I hear people crying, "The redoubts are ours!" There's no stopping us. In we go. It really is. Rush on, boys!
By now, the Americans and French are just outside the final barricades. Yorktown is ready to be taken. On the 17th of October, 1781, the British send up a flag of truce. The British surrender with their band playing. Their choice of music is unknown, but legend has it that the band played an old English ballad, "The World Turned Upside Down."
So, this is that explanation of the song, "The World Turned Upside Down." So listen closely here.
If ponies rode men.
So if the world is upside down, then instead of men riding on ponies, the ponies would be riding on men.
And grass ate cows.
So another upside down bit, if grass ate cows. Wow, that would be weird. That would be the world turned upside down.
If summer were spring and the other way around, then all the world would be upside down.
So why would they choose this song? And I'm going to rewind it a bit so that you can hear all that he has to say about this song again. Why would they choose to play and march out from Yorktown to a song about ponies riding men and grass eating cows? Remember, this was the best army in the world at the beginning of the war. They were fighting untrained farmers and shopkeepers. They expected to win easily. Instead, most of the British soldiers and most of the Americans and the French realized that at this point, the British could not win this war. They would have to surrender. And so to these British soldiers, the world has totally turned upside down, and maybe the next thing that's going to happen is grass is eating cows.
If ponies rode men and grass ate cows, if summer were spring and the other way around, then all the world would be upside down.
They march out in formation, all armed, with bayonets fixed, drums beating, and faces lengthening. They don't pay much attention to us Americans, but when they see the French, their faces darken. They look like boys who've been whipped at school.
So that gives you some idea of what this battle was like. Finally, there was a peace treaty signed in Paris in 1783. The fact that it was in 1783, 2 years after this battle, that tells you that, there we go, it tells you that the British were trying everything they could think of to get over losing this many men, having this large of an army surrender. But finally, in 1783, the British agreed to America being independent. So the British agreed to America's independence. The British agreed to America being its own nation. That's what you want to put in this blank. As part of this agreement, this peace treaty, America got the land from the Appalachian Mountains. How do you spell Appalachian Mountains? So glad you asked. Appalachian. Oopsies. Mountains. You can just put it in like that. To the Mississippi River. So you want Appalachian Mountains to the Mississippi River in those blanks. And once this treaty was signed, King George over in England expected George Washington to become the king of the United States. In fact, people approached Washington and asked him to take over as king. George Washington did what no winning general in history had ever done. He sent the army home, and he went home himself and went back to being a farmer. George Washington gave up a chance at absolute power, and he went home to be a farmer. That might give you some idea of why I think he's a pretty incredible human being. That is the end of your notes about the American Revolutionary War. There's at least one other video that I have linked up today that will allow you to get an overview of the Revolutionary War. But you also need to be sure that you are, pull this on here, making plans for your essay that you will write tomorrow, and making sure that you look over all of these items. I'm not making it up. You need to know this stuff for the test. So as I've given you directions to go places, make sure that you do look at those items. Since what is coming up is a test, you may not on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday have an adult help you. And on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, you may not use your social studies booklet. So do any studying, finish that up today, preparing for the essay, getting ideas of what you want to write about and making sure you know what you want to write about. Those things you may do today, but on Wednesday and Thursday and Friday, you may not use your booklet. You may not ask an adult. You may not look anything up. You may not look back at any videos. So please prepare. Thank you.